Whew, I hope you had fun, and I hope you're learning, and I hope you gave it a go, because that's the most important thing. But here we are. All I want to do now is I want to add our JavaScript, I want to add that event listener, and I want us to utilize event bubbling. So let me expand our text editor right now, and let's start including our script tag. You're going to be amazed at how simple this solution is, by the way. It really isn't that difficult. What's the first thing we have to do? Well, that's right. We want to attach our event listener to something, right? So let's say let div delegation be assigned to the value of our actual div with ID of delegation, because that's the one we want to listen to all our events on, right? We don't want to be attaching event listeners to every box. That's too cumbersome and it's performance inefficient. We want to be true grandmasters in coding, don't we? So we start with our document object. On that document object, we know this already, there's a method called getElementById. And of course, the ID we want to fetch is delegation. I think that's what we called it. ID delegation, that's right. So there we go, that's the first step. The second step is we want to attach our event listener. So we grab our div delegation. We access now a method directly on this called addEventListener. We want to listen for click events, and when that click event is fired, we want to execute our handler. And let's just call our handler remove, for lack of a better word. Of course, now we have to define our function that we've named remove. And now you might think it's tricky, but it's not that tricky. Okay, what do we do now? Well, a lot of coding comes through trial and error. So what I can do is I can code something up that won't quite work, but it will get us halfway. The first thing we want to do is we want to access the event target, don't we? We want to find out where did this event come from. And in order to do that, we have to access the actual event object that's given to us in this callback function. How do we do that? Well, as you know by now, we put it into a variable, and we typically call that variable E. And in order to access our target, we can just define a variable called target, and we access our event object and we get a property called target on it. This we know. Now, what we want to do is we want to remove not only the actual target, but we're wanting to remove the parent node, the parent element. Remember how we structured our code? Let me just scroll up here. Each quote is wrapped in what? That's right, it's wrapped in its own div element with a class of box. So we could say if we click inside a quote, we want to remove its parent element. And of course, if you remove its own parent element, it's removing all the children as well. With that said, you might be thinking the easiest way, Clyde, is just to grab this target, access its parent element via the parent element method. In DOM part 1 of this series, we go into a lot of detail into parent element and how to traverse the DOM. This is specifically one reason where it becomes very useful. And on this, we want to access a method called remove. So let's save this and go to our browser. Let's expand our browser. And now let's click on keep going. Oh man, it's removed it, but it shouldn't have, right? Because we should only remove it when we click on that X. Okay, so it's kind of half working, and this is what I said before when you code. Just try it, give it a go, and as you'll see, we can keep improving on our code as we go along. So let me refresh the page. Let's go back to our text editor. So how do we deal with the fact that we only want to remove the parent element when that little X, that close button, is clicked? One way we can do it is to use the if statement. And there are many ways we can utilize the if statement as well. I'm just going to start by saying if the target, remember the target is the thing, the element that has fired the click event. If that target, if its class name is not equal to remove, remember, because all our buttons have a class of remove. If that element we've clicked on doesn't have that class of remove, we know it's not the button. So in that case, we want to do nothing. We just want to exit out of this if statement. Else, this is the catch block of code. We know that then the element we clicked on does have a class name of remove, in which case that means it is the button. So in that instance, we do want to execute this remove method. on its parent element. Does that make sense? I hope so. Let's refresh. And now if I click on a heading or the quotes, nothing happens. But if we hover over one of these close buttons and we click on that, it's gone. How awesome. So there we go. I hope you have a lot of fun. I hope you're following me. I hope you're understanding how we're setting up the code and how we're utilizing event delegation via bubbling. It really is interesting and you're becoming a master at this by now. Well done.